Welcome to our Sunday evening speaker series. This has been really fun this year. This was our first year doing this. We had a few series in the fall, and now we're wrapping up our spring series. Lots of different topics. Some are focused on staff, administration and coaches. Some are targeted towards student athletes. And tonight we are very, very fortunate to have with you a really strong panel to come and talk about digital mental health. The pandemic's shown us a lot of things that we need to shift our paradigm on, and this couldn't be more timely. We really appreciate Kevin Gorey from our partner USCAH. So usually we have a very good friend of ours named Bob Sweeney come and moderate, and he does a great job, but Kevin was able to step in at a moment's notice and pick up for us. So thank you, Kevin. We have from our newest partner, Mantra Health, digital mental health partner of the NAIA. We have Sean Collins, and then helping us with the campus perspective, the conference perspective, we have Lori Thomas from the Heart of America. So thank you to all three of our guests. This is going to be a great evening. Just a couple things before we get going. I am going to share with you all one more item here as part of the PowerPoint. Stay with me one second. Something I need you all to do for me, our friends who are joining us. I did not have anyone register for the event. So what would be great is, as we get going, take some time and type in your name, your institution, your email address in the chat, any of that. It doesn't have to be the whole thing. It would help us, but you don't have to. Just let us know who's here. I'm going to capture everything that's in the chat and prep some notes and send it back out to everyone that's on the call if you want, and kind of wrap this up for us. The other great thing about the speaker series is, for those of you that are joining live right now, that's great. We appreciate it. But we've started recording these, and it's kind of like more of a podcast approach where it lives online. All of these conversations live online so that you and your colleagues and our friends who can't join us on Sunday can go out there and grab this and listen to it on their own time, share it with their friends across campus, their president, anyone they feel fit. So please go ahead and let us know that you're here. As with the chat, type in any questions that you might have as we go, or any thoughts that you have. I'll do the same. If I hear something profound, I might put it in there. It's just something to think about. And that way, our guest at the end of the event will be able to look and address any concerns or thoughts or questions that you have. Now, keep this in mind. These conversations, these speaker series, they're just the beginning of a conversation. They're not necessarily meant to have closure at 7:59 p.m. We're not going to wrap things up. We're going to keep it going. We're going to keep the energy going, the conversation going. You've got contact information at the bottom there for Kevin, Sean, and Lori. And then also, I want to tell you a little bit about our convention that we have coming up. So for those of you who are able to join us at convention, this is going to be really, really neat. So with the energy coming from the students, with this expectation that is growing, that we start engaging students about their mental health, this is going to be something really neat. I want to show you the sessions at convention that are coming up. Sean, can you give me a head nod? Do you see the three boxes with the? Thank you. So we've got a partner that is a consultant when it comes to mental health. So not a practitioner, a good partner to connect with that helps get student athletes and coaches and administrators physically on the same page in terms of expectations of mental health. Cutler Wellness. They have the athlete mental health link. They have the mental health playbook. Now, again, this is not a counseling service. This is not a certified psychologist and psychiatrist. This is a consultant that works on the department level and really helps people understand how to approach mental health within the department. And Cutler is going to be on hand for a really neat session, 8 o'clock on Saturday, if you can make it. It's going to be a really in-depth, hands-on session for administrators. They're also going to be at a student-athlete roundtable on Friday. They're also going to be at booth 28. Our friends USCAH, Kevin, and some of his colleagues will be there. They are going to participate in a very dynamic student-athlete health and wellness panel at 9:15 on Monday at the convention. They're also at booth 2. And then finally, Sean's colleague Farah is going to be with us. She's going to be at the Governance Academy on Thursday, the Student Athlete Roundtable on Friday, and then she's going to also participate in the panel on Monday morning. She'll also be at booth 4. I share this with you because these groups are ready to engage you and talk with you. So please know that tonight is just the beginning. I'm going to step away and let Kevin kind of engage our 2 guests. And again, keep typing in the chat. I'll keep an eye out for you, and then come back together closer to closing time. So Kevin, I am going to stop sharing, and we will turn this over to you.
Great, Robert, thank you so very much. And a special thank you to Lori Thomas and Sean Collins for joining us this evening for this discussion, a very important discussion, certainly on mental health and resources for everybody on the call to engage as they need. And I also want to thank everybody for joining in, taking part of their Sunday, their valuable weekends. We know that these weekends are very precious to all of us. But again, we appreciate your engagement for your student athletes because, again, that's why we all do what we do. So the first question that I'm going to pose is to both Lori and to Sean. So in your current role, describe the landscape of mental health on campuses and specific to athletics, and how have you seen this evolve over the past few years, but in particular post-COVID?
I can take this first, Lori, if you want. First of all, thank you for putting this session together, and thank you for including me. These issues are increasingly important and long overdue to be discussed so broadly and openly. So I'll start with some numbers out of the American College of Sports Medicine. Approximately 30% of female student athletes and 25% of male student athletes report having anxiety. And yet only 10% of college athletes with no mental health conditions actually seek out care from a mental health professional. Now, some of you who work with student athletes, maybe that last part won't come as much of a surprise. If we view this through the same lens as physical health, we know that these are highly competitive individuals who are trying to stay on the field. And the last thing that many of them are going to do is proactively seek out medical attention for an injury or a potential injury, that's going to keep them from competing. They'll fight through it, or they'll tell you it's fine if you ask them. And unfortunately, it may be even more difficult to get them to seek help, for or discuss their mental health because of the stigmas associated with it, or because it may keep them off the field. But athletes can't and won't perform at their best if they're not healthy, both physically and emotionally. We know this. And so naturally, Mantra Health, we're having conversations with schools all the time about student mental health. And for better or worse, the issues that we hear that they're facing are not unique from one another. Many of them are feeling overwhelmed because of high demand, and the resources aren't always adequate to meet the needs and the expectations of the students. And yeah, demand right now is high in part because of COVID, with increased rates of anxiety and depression and isolation. And while Mantra ordinarily partners at the institution level, more and more we're engaged at the athletic department level as well about dedicated resources for student athletes whose college experience it's just different. They face all the same issues as traditional students, but they've got that added layer of stress that comes with being an athlete on campus. And so then what we've seen from the care side of things since COVID is it has accelerated a trend toward the use of telehealth, both physically and mentally. It becomes necessary at first because of the circumstances, but more and more it serves as an appropriate avenue to seek treatment. It reduces barriers, it increases availability and accessibility. It allows students to be seen by providers more privately in a space where they may feel more safe. Overcoming obstacles and identifying new ways of operating, has always been a catalyst for many historical cultural improvements. And I think that this is just another. And that having been said, we do believe that student athlete mental well-being is best served through a collaborative process of engaging the full complement of available campus and community resources. And we are happy to play a role in that.
Sean, again, thanks so much for that. Can you tell us a little more about Mantra and how you engage with the college campuses? What services do you provide?
Yeah, sure. So Mantra Health is a digital mental health clinic with its own diverse provider group. Our telemental health program was specifically designed with colleges and university students in mind. That is the exclusive environment where we work, colleges and universities only. And we work hand in hand in collaboration with on-campus staff to provide high-quality wellness programs, therapy, and psychiatry. Our clinicians are screened for training, knowledge, and experience working with university students specifically to address these distinct personal, social, career, mental health concerns that they have. And so in addition to that, we do also have providers who specialize in supporting athletes through their own unique pressures.
Thank you. Lori, given your unique perspective, an administrator, former coach, current youth and coach and parent, what concerns you most about mental health and what barriers do you see?
Well, first of all, I just want to say hi, everyone. Thank you for having me. I've learned so much just being starting to engage with Mantra and USCAH and have learned a lot. This is something that I'm really passionate about. The biggest concern that I see that we're hearing a lot, we're reading articles and you see it on the news, is trying to be perfect under very high expectations at an early age, under the selfie spotlight. This all starts, you're starting to see it in middle school, and then it goes into high school and then college, where they're carrying the angst and the baggage to college. And now you're almost where it's coming to a head is where a lot of, who is on here is really starting, to see it. And I think volunteer hours, some of this is forced service that you need to do, leadership positions, student government, association of student athletes, sororities, fraternities, adding on AP courses and college courses in high school, academic honors, and then you add on practices, travel, games. And I know playing in the 80s, we pretty much went to school and we played. And those were the only two things that we did.
Certainly, there are many different viewpoints on mental health, and certainly the importance of being healthy in the realm of mental health and seeking mental health support and treatment. What do you say to athletes, coaches, parents that maybe aren't as in tune with this topic or kind of brush it off? Like Lori, you mentioned when they participated, whether it be in high school or college as parents, that they say, hey, suck it up and get moving.
Yeah, I mean, we, and by we, I mean society, we're quick to label an athlete as soft when they can't handle pressure, in the demands of a high pressure situation or environment. We know that the biggest factors and key elements of persuasion for these parties who are maybe a little bit resistant to it, they come from experts speaking with provable, qualitative and quantitative data and shared in a context that can kind of elicit an emotional response. It also serves the greater goal when, at all levels, including high profile Olympians or professional athletes, when they come forward and share experiences, challenges and how they've improved with attention to all different levels of mental health and mental wellness remedies. It's becoming impossible for coaches, parents, and athletes to ignore that mental and physical health are really kind of tied at the hip. And with unprecedented increase in conversations like this about mental wellness, there will be and there should be increased demand for resources. And so the prevalence of these conversations and naturalizing the discussion increases the likelihood of coaches and students and parents, being exposed to the benefits of all types of mental care in the same way that they are for physical care.
Sean, to follow up on that, what does quality virtual mental health care look like? And what are some of the outcomes you can expect when students do receive good and proper mental health care?
Yeah, sure. So, the data that we're seeing on telemental health care shows us that virtual care is not only equally effective, but it lends itself to higher retention rates for students specifically due to eliminating certain barriers to care. At Mantra, we're also prioritizing, building a strong provider group, which is key to providing high quality services, focusing on building a provider network that is passionate about working specifically with college students, but also trained in evidence-based care. That's the foundation of our work and our success. We focus on making therapy and psychiatry accessible and integrated with the college's own experience. And we should ensure that our providers do what they do best by building strong relationships that lead to effective care. So in our most recent survey, students indicated, about 70% of students indicated that Mantra helped them stay in school. And I think that that's pretty remarkable. To us, that's just one piece of a wide range of impactful outcomes. We want students to feel better equipped, to use healthier coping skills, to better manage their stress and anxiety, to feel empowered to navigate their mental health care.
Lori, you engage with the student athletes, coaches, administrators, and athletic trainers with the Heart of America. What's been their perspective on mental health, and how does this affect some of the outcomes that you're seeing?
Well, I will say, there's 14 institutions in the Heart of America, and I also talk to other ADs and athletic trainers, across the NAIA. And I feel like, there's a big mix. There's a mix of, they know it's important. I think there is some resistance, and I think, Sean, you alluded it, to really due to lack of knowledge, or they have that attitude of, they need to toughen up. We used to do this, why can't they? And we don't know what we don't know. This is where everything is so important. And I just feel like if everybody can kind of move in the same direction, and now we have resources, and now you have Mantra, USCAH, that really I have read and been a part, that you're starting to really understand that there are resources and there's a lot of help out there to try to bring everybody on the same page. Just because I think the perspective is very mixed, from, strong to, not, I don't really understand, and just kind of stay away from it.
So describe how you collaborate with the resources already in place on a campus, and how you begin when resources are scarce or overwhelmed. We know that athletic trainers are asked to do a lot, especially in the time of COVID. They were doing things that they never thought that they would be doing. And now when we have an increased microscope on student mental health, how can we help them out?
Yeah, great question. In collaborating with on-campus.
You better heat it up a little bit. I don't know if that rice got, the chicken got cooked all.
There you go.
There you go.
Sorry. That collaboration is really our value proposition, extending and embellishing on-campus resources. Many of the colleges that use Mantra talk about, our providers kind of being like those that are across the street from them. We're part of a campus community, and we know the dynamic of that campus. We have a collaboration portal, like a technology layer that we use that not only allows campus staff and our providers to share information and updates, but also encourages those conversations. We identify if colleges need extra hours at the counseling center, maybe to extend their own capacity, or what it will allow them to do maybe is focus on some other areas of mental wellness and healthcare that they could be providing on campus. Whether it's group therapy or preventative care or campus outreach or staff training. We've got this diverse group of counselors that can really make a positive impact, to help on-campus folks focus on other impactful activities.
Trying to follow up on that, what can we do to reach students who are currently underserved by or unresponsive to mental health offerings?
Yeah, accessibility and flexibility. Give them options and give them options. We've got a diverse provider group, which is key, because a lot of times, not just students, but people in general who are seeking out mental health services, they're looking for somebody that they maybe identify more closely with, whether it's culturally or ethnically, racially, whatever the case may be. And we have a diverse provider group so that through the course of matching with somebody, they can find somebody they feel more comfortable with. And then beyond that, offering flexible times. A lot of on-campus counseling centers have limited hours. They're open from 8:30 to 4 or 9 to 5 or whatever the case is. It's different for everyone. But maybe they're looking to kind of extend the availability and accessibility for students beyond those. So just having conversations and normalizing, mental health in general from trusted adults like yourselves also just goes a really long way to making them feel like this is something that they shouldn't be shy to seek out for themselves.
Lori, as conference commissioner, what's your expectation or what would you like to see from your member schools in terms of this mental health programming?
Well, there's a few things. I find it interesting first that, we used to, if you remember, we were, a lot of people, we just called them athletes. And then we said, wait a minute. They're students, they're students. There's an academic component that is just as important. So they became student athletes, right? And so to me, I'm like, okay, well, there's also another component now that we aren't giving attention to, and that's that they're human, that they are, that there's a mental piece to this. And so it's interesting to me just how the progression has gone, that it was athlete. Well, we got to add academics. Well, now we're in need of really the mental side of it. I would love to see Heart Schools, one, examine students and student athletes' expectations and make adjustments. They are just being asked to do so much. I would love to see that the coaches and athletic staff be trained about just signs. What are warning signs that they have to pay attention to so that they can then take them to the next step? We're not asking, our coaches to, they are sometimes more than the X's and O's. They do have to learn a little bit more about them as humans. And just being able to get them in the right direction. I would love to see, just to develop a culture that mental health is a priority and be able to provide resources and access to help, just as Sean was talking about. And then in one of the articles I read, what about providing just a free mental health 101 course during the first year that they go to college? So it's really just providing those resources and not, making this hidden. The whole mental health industry, and the reason why I'm passionate about it is I have a family member that struggles with anxiety. And so they're also an athlete. And so it's personal to me. And it's just one that, and even there's times where I've shown fear of going, oh, I don't want to tell people that, they have anxiety. We got to get over that. We got to go over that it's not, it's not a negative thing. It's really, it's kind of us as humans today and what we've been dealing with. And then you add on COVID, and that just made it exasperated the whole thing.
Certainly.
So Lori mentioned something really interesting about the staff really being trained on recognizing signs and symptoms. Administrators and athletic trainers have been really good in the past of emergency action plans for your normal quote unquote emergencies. But now we're seeing the need for emergency action plans with mental health. How can Mantra partner with these organizations to really help develop something that is unfamiliar to a lot of people, and that is a mental health emergency action plan?
Yeah, so I mean, Lori alluded to it. The more you can educate yourself, and the more you can tap into the on-campus resources that may already be available, and to resources like Mantra, just to become as familiar as possible with all of the different avenues of care that exist for your students. I use as an example sometimes my own daughter, when she was going through her recruiting process, very early in the process. She was attending an ID camp. And the coach opened up, questions and answers to the parents who were in attendance also. And I asked a question, and this was long before I ever worked, specifically for a company like this in a field like this. But I asked, what resources are available or in place, what measurements are in place to help identify and support, students who may be experiencing mental health issues, whether they're eating disorders or anxiety, stress, whatever. And I didn't love her answer. And I don't say that, because maybe the resources were available, but she didn't know about them, or maybe she didn't know how to articulate them. But it was very, very limited, and it wasn't especially a holistic, supportive approach to working with these students. So coaches, athletic trainers, The more you can become aware and familiar with what resources are available on campus to help support these things, the better served the students will be as a result of that.
Sean, can you describe a little more detail the mental health area from Mantra and how it works for the end user, and what are the benefits to this type of service?
Yeah, sure, absolutely. Yeah, so telehealth, as I described earlier, it reduces barriers to seeking service. Students can really access during windows of time that work best for them, and we know that student athletes have very limited schedules in a lot of cases, and they can do it in a location that feels comfortable for them without needing to set aside any time to commute to an appointment or worry about, if I hate to say this because it supports the stigma, but maybe they don't want to be seen walking into the counseling center. For busy student athletes, these are just some of the major perks. And for Mantra users specifically, the process feels almost second nature by now. We've been in a pandemic for 2 years. They've taken their classes online. They do a lot of things on their phone, and they can set up their appointments in an area where they just feel comfortable talking to provider. They can utilize tools to message in between appointments to increase access and support. And we really aim for the entire thing to be an intuitive platform that's very easy to use for them.
This question is for both Lori and Sean. What do you see? What's your prediction for the future in this area? Certainly, we know that resources are being offered in mental health moving forward. But what do you see as moving forward for everybody?
Lori, you want to go first?
Yeah, go ahead. No, go ahead, and then I'll follow.
Yeah. So, we're seeing some legislation at the federal level that's really aiming to increase access to telehealth services and ultimately allow the greater ease in connecting with providers. Telehealth is here to stay, and we need to stay on top of that and what it means for students seeking mental health care as the landscape in the field changes. I asked when I was considering taking this position with Mantra, and it was my real first introduction to telemental therapy. I reached out to a friend of mine who's an associate dean of students at a major R1 research institution, and I wanted his input on if this was something that was a worthwhile endeavor, if teletherapy would exist beyond COVID. And without hesitation, the answer was yes, absolutely. So I felt a lot more comfortable kind of diving in here with that in mind. So that's kind of what we're seeing. We also, that students and their families, they have high expectations of colleges, universities when it comes to the services that should be available to them when they get on campus, with reduced stigmas, with, more resources available to younger students. And with COVID, unfortunately, having increased the rate of some of these issues, such as depression and anxiety and isolation, students are coming onto campus in greater numbers with greater expectation of the services that really should be available to them. So it's going to put a strain on the resources if we're not prepared now to kind of extend those.
And I would just add on, in my world, just that, the prediction of it not, being a negative thing, and that it's openly talked about, and that really all of us, I'm going to admit, all of us need some, guidance and help, with just living our lives every day. So I look at, the football player from Ohio State, that just being able to really own sort of your feelings and to understand that it's okay, to maybe say no, that we're going to live in a world that it's just a little more peaceful, and that, everyone, once again, that you're not just striving to be perfect in everything that you do. And if we have those resources behind us, then we can get to that place.
So, and Lori, you mentioned something about it's okay to not be okay. And I think that's certainly important for everybody to understand, not just the caregivers in this case, but certainly pass that along to the athletes as well.
Absolutely. And, one of my passions is, coaching, young girls, young teenage girls. And I spend a lot of time just talking about life, and, that playing a sport should just be your outlet, should be fun. It shouldn't be stressful. That should be the fun part, because a lot of other things are hard. And so it's just, it's something, once again, that it just has to be okay to be not okay, or to be okay not to be okay, just like you said.
Mm-hmm.
So when resources are limited, we know that the NAIA, not all schools are created equal. So what would you consider to be basics or the starting point for campus athletic trainers, administrators to help address mental health for their student athletes?
Yeah, I mean, again, just talking to your counseling center or local mental health agencies if you don't have an on-campus counseling center or they're not available, about offering training to your staff. Many agencies have funding to offer these types of trainings, whether on psychological first aid, offering support, or understanding mental health care resources that are available to your students. And this ties back to an earlier question about, just becoming familiar with the things that are out there for you and educating yourself as much as possible. These trainings can really help you in feeling better equipped in navigating challenging conversations about stress and anxiety and depression, or accessing help, so that you can be an important part of the front lines of support. They're also there to help discern, when you might want to actually get professional mental health resources involved. Because there are some things that will just be out of your, above your pay grade, so to speak, in terms of what you should be equipped to handle, and how to identify those and how to navigate those, whether a community crisis hotline or additional on-campus resources. And we also understand the silo effect that exists on college campuses. I'm sure many of you have been, working in higher education or on campuses for a long time. I've been working on the vendor side in higher education for a very long time. Things are very, very siloed naturally. And the more we can do to kind of break those down or to kind of build your entire campus support network and find ways to work together, student support really is a team effort and it'll benefit from that.
And I just want to add, when I think of NAIA, I've been involved with the NAIA for 24 years. Everyone in positions, carry a lot of responsibility. They have, do a lot of different jobs. And so I know that it's sometimes difficult to go, oh God, how am I going to add that on my plate? How am I going to add that on my plate? But if you really look at the end line of whatever that is, it has to be raised as a priority, and something else might have to go away. Something else might have to go down on the priority list. And I think of coaches, and I've even had a president who would like, the Heart of America to implement like 1 day off. You don't practice 7 days a week, you get a 1 day off. And there's resistance because they're like, well, oh no, nobody else is doing that. Well, you know what? It's time to step up. It's time to be bold and make changes and implement, things that are for the betterment of life of these young people. And that's where, we have to get really serious about it.
That's great points.
I think one of the things that you both have said that makes me think is the frontline caregivers, and in this case, the athletic trainers, we've never done a great job, in my opinion, of asking for help. And I think when we do ask for help, especially in this environment, it certainly increases the outcome, the chance for a positive outcome for everybody involved. But it also allows us to do a little introspective, where our own little mental health checkup, again, especially as we feel isolated, we feel overworked and overwhelmed, that we can kind of learn for ourselves on this. And the final question that I have for this evening is, for both of you, what in your opinion can athletic departments be doing to be proactive when it comes to mental health resources and services for their campus communities?
John, I'll let you start again because
Yeah, sure.
you're the professional in this.
So for many students, their coach or maybe their AD, might be their go-to when it comes to seeking support. So it's important to know who your partners are and what resources are available on campus. I'll continue to come back to this, just familiarizing yourself with what you have access to right now. Get involved with your campus's care team to make sure that you're on the front line when it comes to outreach and care management. Seek out, like I said, that psychological first aid training for your staff and your coaches to help you feel better equipped to help students navigate resources. Build collaborative on-campus partnerships with service providers and make sure you have a way to support your students in seeking mental health care. Your counseling center may be able to do a training for your department. And you can explore what's available there. But just remember that you're part of, it takes a village, so to speak. You're part of that village, and your role is important to the bigger picture. And I'll also just say, one other point. Lori mentioned earlier, she's got a family member who struggles with anxiety or other mental health issues. And we shouldn't be shy, but, she said I shouldn't be shy about talking about that. And in kind of the same way, if it was a knee injury, if she had ACL surgery, it's not something that we would be afraid to talk about. And I'd love to see us be able to get to a place where we just understand that these are issues that athletes face. These are issues that people face, and there shouldn't be anything, wrong with talking about that with them. And there shouldn't be anything wrong from, with suffering from them, as long as you have the resources and the knowledge and the access to get care. Go and find it.
A question came up from Teresa, and thank you certainly for submitting this. She mentions that the NAIA has a strong international student athlete demographic. Is there support for these individuals in their primary language? And she wonders if not in their primary language, is as helpful when it's needed.
So, I talked a little bit about our provider group having, being able to be screened for certain skill sets, so to speak. We could, depending on the partnership and the level of need, we could prioritize the growth of that, depending on certain, whether it's a language or any other kind of specific niche skill set. We can prioritize the growth of that's one of the benefits of having our own provider group, is we can do those types of things when we see that there's a need, when there's partnerships that we're exploring, when that may become available. Now that having been said, international students and treating international students, certainly, has, is something to be explored as well. But, I can, if there's anybody who'd like to, has a particularly high, rate of international students at their institution, I'd be happy to talk to you about that further as well.
Well, and I would think that, there's obviously so many different languages that, there are usually someone in the community or the area that you can speak that language, that even if there was an interpreter, because I lived in Europe for a little while, and it is very hard to express your true feelings, when you can't speak in your native language. But if there was an interpreter that could actually help express what they're trying to say, that might be helpful also.
Yeah, definitely.
So are there resources? Are there resources for cultural differences in really what mental health is? Certainly, different athletes come from different backgrounds, and not every culture views mental health and mental health awareness and treatment the same way.
Yeah, I mean, resources that are available, yes. Am I able to identify them? Probably not. I mean, certainly we know that there are different cultures that kind of suppress, this type of support, or they don't encourage or push their individuals in this direction. It's something to kind of be ashamed of, perhaps, or to keep to yourself, and that's in no way, shape, or form a healthy way to approach this. So that, again, just becomes us as the adults in the room, working hand in hand with these student athletes. It becomes on us to kind of find those red flags, identify when they're in need of support, and helping to kind of steer them to the right resources.
Robert, I think that's all the questions that have come up to this point. So I think it might be an appropriate time to turn it back to you and see if there are any final questions or sentiments.
Absolutely. Kevin, Lori, Sean, thank you all so much. Group, I'm looking at everyone on the screen and on screen number 2 and screen number 3. Are there any other questions from the audience before I shift over to 2 more things? Hearing none, but please know, if you do, we've got 19 minutes left to go. If you want to stay around, ATCs, the very last thing we're going to do is put up the little response, the link you have to click on for your continuing education unit. But for now, I do want to share one other thing with you, and this is pretty important. I want you to see this screen. If I can find it. So we've talked about a lot of deep topics today in just for 43 minutes. So on these previous recordings, what I'd really like the attendees to do sometime over the next week is look at the staff-facing presentation that's about student athlete mental health for coaches and administrators. Now, remember, that was our friends from Cutler Wellness who just focus on policies, procedures, and education. That's it. Not the actual service of counseling. But that sets up the kind of training that Lori was talking about, that people who are, whether they like it or not, are now on the front lines of mental health, coaches, administrators, athletic trainers. And it sets up a very comfortable conversation about taking that next step and really accepting that responsibility. So that's a wonderful little 50-minute conversation that you can watch. And the other one bolded there is on the student-facing side. But again, coaches, administrators, ADs, I'd love for you to log into that student-facing website. Now, give them about 3 days, because it's still in the process of being all tightened up and made professional. But that's going to be online here in the next week. And it's Olympic silver medalist Courtney Fryricks, who has struggled with a lot of mental health issues over her professional career. And here's the thing, if you want to hear someone talking about their student athlete experience from the last 8 years, if there's anyone that needs convincing that this is real and this needs to be prioritized, listening to Courtney talk with Mantra's Dr. Leah Goodman, they have an amazing conversation. And to sit back and hear them discuss the importance of this should shift your paradigm quite a bit. So please remember, tonight was just the beginning of thinking about this. If you want to keep going down that path, we're going to have a lot of great conversations at convention. You've got these 2 webinars to click on and listen to at your own time. But I tell you, it's really, really important. And we really appreciate being here. I want to put up a poll super fast, and I'm not that tech savvy, so I hope this goes over okay. Everyone that is watching, we won't know who you are, but if you could click somewhere in that, Kevin, can you see the poll on screen? Okay.
I can.
So, okay, there you go too, Sean. Go ahead and I'm not sure exactly how you all would do this. So 5 means that, wow, this changes things for me. I loved this conversation. 1 is not so much. Hey, there we go. I see someone has put their vote in. If the rest of you could do that for me and tell me, is it toward the 5 side? Is it toward the 1 side? Let us know where you're at with this. That'll help us a great deal. You'll also see the second part of the poll, not as stressful. If there are other topics that you want us to discuss, find an expert out there in the world and bring them and engage them in a dialogue. Let me know. And also, if you want my cell numbers on there, go ahead and reach out to me. Let me know what those topics are, and I will be very, very glad to engage you and find another resource to present to you. So again, this has been so helpful. Lori, thank you for giving us that perspective with your history. We really appreciate the wisdom that you bring. Sean, being a brand new partner, helping us learn what this whole new world of digital mental health, and you said your colleague said, yeah, this telehealth thing is not going away. This is the future.
That's right.
Yeah. And Kevin, with USCAH, with the guidance that you've given us on all things related to physical, mental health policies, procedures, thank you for stepping up and doing that. I'm good with hanging out for a little bit longer, and anyone that's on the call, if you want to ask a question or have any kind of dialogue, I can stick around. But the last thing I really want to do is share my screen and put up this link for USCAH's continuing education unit. But before we do go, Kevin, Lori, Sean, any last thoughts?
No, no other thoughts. I think we shared a lot, and I hope that it was helpful to the group. I'm happy to continue the conversation with anybody who's interested. These are important discussions, and the better informed everybody is on it, the more we can kind of obliterate the barriers and hopefully reduce the stigmas and get our student athletes help when they need the help.
The only thing I would say is that we have to be proactive and not be reactive. It'll take one tragedy before we kind of have to look back and say, oh my gosh, we didn't do that, or we should have done this. I'm hoping that I'll be able to kind of help my conference and drive, them in the direction that we're going to be proactive. And I think that's really, really important.
Robert, just the last comments on my end is our training historically has not included mental health. So it's okay to admit that you need help and to be able to ask questions and ask for help on this, because again, we certainly are not the experts when it comes to mental health, and it's okay to not know where to start. And that's why you've got partners like USCAH, and you have partners like Mantra to help you guide through that process and give the best potential outcome and an opportunity for your student athletes.
That's exactly right. Everyone coming together. This is the beginning of a journey, and like Lori said, this is a shift in the way that we operate, hopefully, and we've got the right people to guide us down those paths, especially with the three of you colleagues that are on the call. Please feel free to reach out and let me know your thoughts if there's anything that you want to, if you want to meet these individuals. Yep.
And I'd love to, someone has just written this, and we should do a big shout out to our athletic training staff. Sometimes you are on the front lines of this, and it used to be, more medical and physical. And now athletic trainers, are kind of being expected to, either help them or know the signs and all of that. So I want to thank, all of you athletic trainers. You work many long hours. I know you do in the NAIA especially. And so thank you for all the work that you do.
The CEU link will be shared. I just put it in the chat. Everyone, thank you very much. I'm going to stop the recording.